This evening I'm going to attempt to regulate my finishes here like I said I was going to do in my last video. I'm going to basically move frames out the bottom into the top and vice versa and swap them around. Now our flow has started, but it's not been as warm today as we thought, so I've got to think about that and see what space this hive's already got, because obviously we want to leave plenty of room for that queen in there to lay over the next maybe 10 days before I check this again. But I need to put some open brood from somewhere in here up in the top, because there's probably going to be open brood there because the queen's been laying in there, but we'll have a look as I open it up. You'll notice straight away we've got drones trapped above the queen excluder, so I'm going to let them out and they'll have a chance to crawl back down underneath the excluder when I take that off. I'm just having a quick look in this top box first to see what we got before we go any further. Right, so this is all drawn out. There's no eggs in that from when I put this frame in here last time. Obviously it's been above the excluder, the queen can't lay. But I just want to see what state this is in. I think this is going to be a lot of honey. That's all emerged brood now. So this frame, for instance, that can go back down the bottom, because that's just waiting for the queen to lay, and she's dying to lay back into that. Give these guys a little bit of smoke, just to back them back down a bit. Have a look at this other frame here. See if this is all hatched out. Yes, it is. So this colony is in desperate need of new frames, because I bet when I look at the hive underneath, I'm going to find that there's definitely every frame laid up, or most of them laid up, so that queen's going to need that space. So let's take off this top box, put it alongside here, or put it on the roof of this one next door. Make a bit of room here. It gets a bit chaotic when you're doing this with all your colonies, because there's never a lot of room. You just do what you can though. So let's just lift up that excluder. This is it's what I call my 5/5. It works for me anyway. It can be a little bit awkward sometimes. I'm going to take that excluder off this time. I want it off. Straight away I know that everything in this top box hasn't got a queen, has nothing to do with the queen. The queen is all underneath here. There's no eggs, there's no larvae. So all I have to do, if I want to take frames from the bottom here, is just shake the bees off, because I know that the queen will be in the bottom there somewhere. Like I said, full of brood, full of bees, and full of eggs, which is exactly what I want to see. So this is hatching out, but she's laying it up as fast as she can. And if I see the queen, rather than shake her off, I'm actually going to put her in my queen clip, because I know then that she's safe. I don't really like shaking bees unless I find the queen, but when I've got a bit of time to show you this, it's always a bit easier to put her in a queen clip. So this frame needs to come in the top, and one of the top needs to come down. I really need to swap these boxes around, but I can't do that because my bottom box has the fixed floor in it. So ideally, yes, I could just swap them over, but then I'll obviously have to find the queen again. So I'll just shake these bees off. Let's take this one out for a moment, put this to the side. Have a look at the next one. Look at that, beautiful frame of brood. You see how careful you've got to be with your queens. You've got to keep them occupied and you've got to keep them busy. So I should have really been in here a week ago and removed all this. Well, maybe 5-6 days ago. As far as I'm concerned, that's a bit too strong for what I want. But I'll look at the peripheries now. So this hasn't been laid up yet, so I'm quite happy with that. That was a good backstop, that one. I wonder if this size has. Can't even get the bees to move. No, there's space for eggs in there, so that's good as well. So that one can stay where it was. Look at the next one to the number number 2 here on the left hand side. Let's have a look at this. All laid up. That's 2 complete frames of brood that are going to hatch out. So this queen is really going great guns in here. Look at that. So I know that when those 2 frames of brood hatch out, there's going to be so many bees in here, I'm going to have to start removing some, otherwise it probably will swarm. There she is, white dot queen. Got my queen clip ready. Get her in the queen clip. I know she's safe. There she is. And I haven't squashed her abdomen. There's a few bees in there, but they'll keep her company. And if you can see that, she's there, she's safe now. Nice big queen. Right, let's have a look at this frame full of eggs. So that frame can come up the top for a start. Let's start rearranging here. Let's take this frame out we saw before. That are completely hatched out, and put that one underneath. So we got the queen. We know there's no other queens, as far as we know. It's always something to consider. That then goes in the bottom. The queen will lay into that. She's got room now. And those 2 frames of brood can go in the top. Now, if they were hatching brood, I'd be inclined to leave them in the bottom to hatch out. Actually, that one I will leave in the bottom, because see, that's hatching already in that corner, and within 2 or 3 days I think that'll all hatch out. There's some in the bottom there that's now ready to be capped over, but I'll put this one back in and take the other one, because the other one was completely sealed, but no way hatching yet. There you go. You can see it's only just been sealed over. The cappings are all a little bit kind of nice and fresh and plump, but it proves everything's working well. I mean, look at that frame of brood, it's absolutely glorious. So let's put that in the top, and let's find a frame of brood in the bottom that's open, so I can put that in the top so I can put my grafts next to it. There's another frame for her. Let's find some open brood. I think it's going to be in this final frame here. Not here. Right, that's just space for her to lay. We just put that one in, I think. So, that one's there. It's just a question of juggling things around. She hasn't laid on that side, we check that. Okay, but she has laid into here. So I'm going to put this frame in the top, where I know those eggs will be hatching out. And when I put my larvae in there, so when I put my cells to be finished in there, that's where she'll be. That's where the bee side will be. They'll be there feeding those larvae, and I'll be feeding my queen cells to be finished. You can see the amount of bees on this, it's just incredible. This is full of eggs as well, and larvae. So I'm going to put this in the top as well. So this 2 is where I'm going to put my grafts between. So I'll just do this, leave them slightly apart for the moment, so I know when I come that's where they're going to go. And the bottom one here, this is going to go back in. This will give the queen so much room to lay. She was laying on that. I don't know if you can see that in the sunshine. It's full of eggs as well, but I've run out of room in the top now, so it's a bit of a itty bitty frame, but she's still laying well on that. Both sides absolutely full, and if you can see those eggs, that's what I want to see. So this queen's doing well. So she'll now have plenty of room in the bottom, and now I've got bees and brood in the top and larvae in the top that those bees will be feeding. So I'm going to put my grass right next to them, and that's what makes up a good finisher. You have to have lots of nurse bees near where your grafts are going to go. It's just logic. So let's get these bees back in. Main thing is we know the queen is going to be put back in a moment. It's going to use a little bit of smoke to shoo these bees around and back in. Here's the queen. Back in she goes. Come on, dear. She's in. Back goes the excluder. Take off any burr comb, because it does chop things up a bit. And that then is this adjusted so that the queen has more space underneath, and I've got space at the top to put in larvae that need finishing. It's a colony. I could have harvested a frame of that brood, but because we've had a very slow spring, this finisher to me is good, and it's as strong as I want it. I would, if it was any stronger, when those 2 frames of brood I left in the bottom, have hatched out, I'll probably start taking bees from it then, but it was a little bit slow to get going, this one. But it just shows you what I do and how I manage these finishers. So any finisher that you have, you need to have open brood, if you can, next to where you're going to put your cells, because it just draws in those nurse bees a bit more, because they're there then. They're already there, and then you feed it as well, like you would do. Even in a flow, you put a little bit of feed on tonight. I'll put a feed on tonight when these cells go in, and then we'll hopefully have some good cells drawn out and finished, because these are accepted cells going in here. We're not using it as a starter. This is just as a finisher box, and all you need is a queen excluder to keep the queen away, but a strong colony. So I hope that clears things up a little bit. A lot of people ask me these questions. How do you regulate your finishes? Well, you will suss it out, but you just need if you didn't do that, you'd still get queens drawn out, the queen size finished, but they just might not be as good as you perhaps hoped for. So anyway, that's it. That's that done. Let's get the top back on and get some cells out, the hopelessly queenless setup, and then they'll be done. And we can distribute them onto the finishers. Got a few nurse bees here. I can just put in this feeder for now, knock them in. Voila. So that is how I regulate my finishers. So this is where the fun really begins. I'm going to take out some started cells that I hope are started from this hopelessly queenless setup we made yesterday. You saw the cells going in that nice load of bees. The weather's a bit cold tonight and there's a breeze, so I've got to be very careful. Now we're going to see what acceptance we've got and see the feeder empty. I should have filled it up yesterday again, but they emptied it out overnight. A lot of bees here. Let's see how our cells have done. How many we got accepted? Here we are. Give it one knock, quick hard knock, it's all the bees off. A lot of smoke. Clears the bees down. Let's see how these got on. There's our frame. Let's see how we got on here. These are actually day 2 because yesterday was so cold and windy I couldn't get into the cells. So let's have a look here. It looks pretty good. Not bad at all. I'm pretty chuffed with that. Not much work to do here to get these all ready. So what I'll do is I'll take these out. They'll go into the finishers. I'm going to need 4 finishers for 4 bars. because there's about at least 3.5 here taken. Pretty good results. And if you can see that, so let's have a count. We've got one missing there, one missing there, one missing there, because that fell out. One missing there, one there. So let's have a count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 8 out of 56 that haven't taken. So I'd say that's a pretty good result, really. And what I do, I'll take 2 bars out and I'll leave them just on top, because there's so much heat coming up here out of this hive that actually the bees heat their larvae and heat the non-finished cells. So as I said, these are day 2, but I'll leave them on here, and I can always smoke them clear again, but it means I've got access to them when I want them. So I'm just going to move this out a bit. You can see bees get everywhere, and you do often get stung, but I like to work with bare hands, because the problem is trying to get these off with gloves, invariably you damage the cells, you know. It's so easy to damage these, they're so delicate. So I put them back on there, that keeps them warm. Just going to try and get some of these off again. A little bit more smoke. And it doesn't matter if when you pick these up again, because they're ready to go into a finisher, it doesn't matter if they've got some bees on, because they're nurse bees. And they'll just go straight into the other colony you put them in. No big deal. So there we go. That's now the 4 bars. But I'm going to just gap them up a little bit, because well, there's so many accepted there. I'm not really fussed if they all go in as they are, to be honest. Because the time it's going to take me to, well, let's have a little look. What I tend to do is literally, so that one there's got one missing there. There's no point in regulating that. There's no point really in regulating that. That's only got 2 missing, that's only got 2 missing. I'll just put the bars straight into finishers. What's the point, you know? You can spend a lot of time doing this, taking these off, but you've got to be careful, because you end up taking the one off next door, and then they can get damaged. So I sometimes just take the cups off, so I know, and I like sometimes just to see as well, if I take these off, I like to just see sometimes if the bees have suddenly decided they don't want to finish them, or they don't do I've just pulled the cap out of that one, or they don't do a very good job. It gives me, I know that if there's no cap in it and a dead bee, sorry, an empty cup with just a cap, I know that it hasn't fallen out. I know that I took it off. So there we go. Let's just take these off while I'm here. We've got time. It's nice and warm. It's nice and warm here. As I say, it's a bit chilly today, and we've still got a slight breeze. So you've just got to remember that when you're working with your bees. And these larvae are obviously very delicate, and you don't want to jolt them. You want to keep them really, really, treat them as if they were eggs, really delicately. So there's only 2 to take off here. The bees are being lovely actually tonight. There is, as I say, there is a flow on now anyway, but we've not had a huge day for nectar today. But tomorrow and the next week look just incredible, hot and sunny and dry, which is just perfect for us. So there you go. Those are all off. But you see, I've just damaged that one. I've just bent that one in slightly. But the bees will sort that out, or I'll bend it back out. But that's what you've got to watch. They are so delicate, these cells. So you can see these are day 2. And if you look, you can see the big fat juicy larvae in. And you know straight away everyone's got a larvae, because it's a well-fed colony. And as I put these into a finisher, you will see then that these become hopelessly queenless again. And you only need to leave them about an hour, but these will actually draw cells out again instantly tonight, because those 2 pollen frames I put in yesterday are still good. There's pollen coming in as well. The forecast for tomorrow is excellent. I'll fill the feeder back up, but they will actually draw better cells out on the next round. I often find on the second round of cells, they draw even better cells out. So it works for me. But I'm just showing you this so that you can kind of understand the process. Now, I know I've done it in the video, but if you see it a couple of times, it helps you really reinforce it and how easy it is. So I'm going to leave those on there. I'll open up my finisher, pop those in, straighten these out. The bees will just keep those warm on the top there. Treat them really carefully. There's no damage there. and then I'll come back in 5 minutes. The sun's on them a bit, it's fine. They won't damage them, but the bees will keep them warm, and they'll go into the finishers now. And that's what we do. It's as simple as that. And then so these will be, well, that was a good save. These will be ready in another 8 days. I'll probably harvest them before that and put them back into an incubator if I run out of room in my finishers, because the problem is you end up with so many finishers and so many queen cells all over the place. You have to write down on top of the box or write on a piece of paper and leave it inside the box when these were grafted and when they went in. Otherwise you get completely muddled up and things start hatching out when they shouldn't. And an incubator is so good, because even if you bring them in 1, 2 or 3 days earlier and you put them in individual hair roller cages, if you forget the time, they hatch out, it's no big deal. If they hatch out without cages around them in the finisher, you're screwed. You've lost the whole 14 or 12 or 10 of them or whatever, you've lost them. So that's what I tend to do. Anyway, let's get this finished. Time's ticking away. I've got to graft again in a minute and get the new grafts back in. Have a good day.